Picture a 15-year-old kid. He's living in this really impoverished, cramped house on the island of Madeira.
Right.
And he's just been diagnosed with this racing, irregular heartbeat, something that threatens not only to end his athletic career before it even starts, but could, seriously jeopardize his actual life.
It's a terrifying diagnosis for anyone, let alone a kid.
Exactly. But now, fast forward. That exact same human being grows up to achieve a near 3-meter vertical jump to literally defy gravity against elite defenders. And he eventually becomes the very first person on the planet to reach 1 billion followers across social media.
It's just wild. It's a trajectory that, frankly, breaks all the normal models of sports and celebrity. I mean, we're looking at over 2 decades at the absolute pinnacle of global culture.
Which is exactly our mission today. We are taking a deep dive into the unprecedented career, the physical and tactical evolution, and the massive, sometimes controversial global ecosystem of Cristiano Ronaldo up to the year 2026.
Yeah, and the goal isn't just to, rattle off a list of trophies. You can find that anywhere.
Right. We want to understand, for you listening, how this happened. How did he engineer himself into this kind of titan?
Well, to understand the machine, you really have to look at the raw materials it was built from. And in his case, the primary material was extreme, almost irrational hardship.
Yeah, I was reading through the background material, and it's actually kind of jarring because he was born into severe poverty. His mother, Dolores, was a cook and a cleaner, and his father, Dinas, was a municipal gardener. But there was a real shadow over the family, right?
A very dark one, yeah. His father had actually served in the Portuguese army during the colonial war in Angola.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the trauma of that experience left him with severe, lifelong alcoholism. It's this addiction that tragically claimed his life when Ronaldo was just 20 years old.
That's incredibly young to lose a parent.
It is. And the financial and emotional strain early on was just immense. The sources note his mother actually considered and requested an abortion when she was pregnant with him, simply out of sheer desperation and poverty.
Really?
Yeah, but her doctor refused.
That is heavy. And as a random aside, they actually named him after U.S. President Ronald Reagan, just because his dad liked him as an actor.
Right, exactly.
But, growing up in that environment, it clearly forged something intense in him. Football wasn't a hobby. It was a literal lifeline. Though apparently he wasn't exactly a model student when he left home to join Sporting CP's academy in Lisbon.
Oh, far from it. He felt deeply isolated there. He was mocked by the other kids for his island accent, and he had a really volatile temper.
I read he got expelled.
He did. At 14, he was actually expelled from school for throwing a chair at a teacher.
A chair?
Yeah, he felt the teacher had disrespected him. So he had this immense pride, but it was incredibly fragile. And then just a year later comes the tachycardia diagnosis.
Okay, stop right there because the medical timeline on this completely baffled me. So he has a racing irregular heartbeat. They perform laser heart surgery to cauterize the tissue. How is a teenager medically cleared to play top-tier academy football after someone fires a laser into his heart?
I know, it sounds completely like science fiction. But the procedure, it's called catheter ablation, is highly targeted. They essentially go in and burn away the tiny cluster of cells that are causing the misfiring electrical signals.
Okay, but still.
Right, but what's wild isn't just the medical science, it's the timeline. I mean, he was discharged hours later.
Hours?
Hours. And he was back running on the training pitch within days.
That is both terrifying and incredible. It's like a superhero origin story where the very thing that could have stopped him, his actual heart, had to be laser cauterized, leaving him with this machine-like focus.
That's a great way to put it, because it did give him a singular focus. Fast forward a bit to 2003. He is 18 years old, playing in a friendly match for Sporting against Manchester United.
The famous friendly?
Yes. He completely terrorized the United defense. The reporting says the United players were sitting on the team bus afterward, practically begging their legendary manager, Sir Alex Ferguson, to sign this kid immediately.
Which Ferguson did, right, for a record fee for a teenager at the time. But how did the British press actually receive this flashy 18-year-old Portuguese winger? Because it wasn't all praise.
Well, it was brutal. They literally labeled him a show pony.
A show pony.
Yeah, the criticism was that he had all these elaborate stepovers and tricks, but no end product whatsoever. He would beat a defender 3 times just for the fun of it, and then completely overhit the cross.
So how does he get from the show pony to the clinical, ruthless goal scorer? It kind of reminds me of a tech startup, right? Like realizing their original product is super flashy but just won't scale, so they completely pivot their business model.
That is a brilliant one to frame it. And the software update in this case was heavily driven by Sir Alex Ferguson.
Who was almost like a father figure to him.
Exactly. Ferguson realized Ronaldo lacked that stable father figure and really stepped into that void. He taught him that all those tricks were useless if they didn't manipulate the defender's positioning.
So it became about efficiency.
Right. Under Ferguson, the elaborate stepovers became calculated tools, just a way to create a half-inch of space for a shot. And that tactical discipline is what won him his first Ballon d'Or, the award for the world's best player at age 23.
But the evolution didn't stop there. As he moved to Real Madrid and later Juventus, his entire body and playing style seemed to morph. People usually assume athletes just hit 30, lose their raw speed, and naturally fade away. How did he actually defy that biological clock?
Well, by completely reinventing his spatial awareness on the pitch. In his early 20s, like we said, he was a traditional winger, just flying down the touchline.
Right, crossing the ball.
Yeah. Then in his mid-20s, he became this false winger, starting out wide but constantly cutting inside to shoot. But as he hit 30, when that explosive 40-yard sprinting speed naturally wanes, he transitioned into a central poacher.
So what does that actually look like, mechanically on the pitch?
Well, instead of trying to outrun a defender over half the pitch, he started operating almost entirely inside the penalty box. He mastered the geometry of the game.
Finding the gaps.
Exactly. He learned how to find the blind spots between center backs. He traded those 40-yard sprints for lethal, explosive 5-yard darts right as the ball was arriving.
Which requires way less energy.
Infinitely less sustained energy.
Yeah.
But it demands hyper-elite cognitive processing and split-second timing.
And I imagine hyper-elite physical conditioning to win those 5-yard battles. Like, let's look at the jumping, because this is where the physics just seem entirely broken to me.
Oh, the jumping is legendary.
Right. In 2013, against Manchester United, he records a vertical jump of 2.93 meters. What does nearly 3 meters in the air actually look like on a football pitch?
It means his waist was literally at the height of the defending player's head.
That is insane.
It is. And the mechanics behind that aren't just about having strong legs. It's about plyometric training. It's about core stability to hang in the air, which basically counteracts gravity for a split second. And it requires an obsessive, almost monastic dedication to recovery.
Like what kind of recovery?
We're talking about a guy who utilizes polyphasic sleep.
Wait, what is that?
He takes 5 90-minute naps a day rather than one long sleep cycle.
You're kidding.
No, and he pairs that with strictly controlled micro-diets, just to maintain the fast-twitch muscle fibers required for that kind of leap.
And that biomechanical obsession applies to his free kicks too, doesn't it? The famous wide stance run-up, the deep breaths. Honestly, it looks like pure theatrical showmanship.
It is theater, sure,
Yeah.
but it's engineered theater. He adopted what's called a knuckleball technique.
How does that work?
By striking the ball directly on the valve with a very rigid foot, he entirely removes the Magnus effect. That's the spin that usually makes a ball curve in the air. So without spin, the air resistance catches the seams of the ball unpredictably, causing it to violently dip or swerve at the very last millisecond. It makes it an absolute nightmare for goalkeepers to track.
Wow. And the stats that came out of this evolution are hard to wrap your head around. The sources show that during his time at Real Madrid, he scored 450 goals in 438 appearances.
Just staggering.
Literally averaging more than a goal a game for nearly a decade. Plus, he's the only player to score 100 goals for 4 different clubs: Sporting, United, Madrid, and Juventus. And he has over 960 senior career goals past the age of 40.
Which perfectly explains his 2023 move to the Saudi Pro League.
Right, because a lot of people saw that as just cashing out.
Exactly. But after conquering Europe and winning domestic titles in England, Spain, and Italy, moving to Saudi Arabia wasn't just a retirement tour. It was another pivot.
Another software update.
Yes. He adapted his game yet again to remain the absolute focal point of an entirely new league, reinventing his utility rather than accepting a diminished bench role in Europe.
But you don't put your mind and body through that kind of sustained, agonizing physical torture without some serious psychological fuel.
Was it just the rivalry with Lionel Messi that kept him going?
Well, the Messi rivalry is the bedrock of modern football history. For 15 years, they forced each other into an absolute arms race of statistics. Historically, scoring 30 goals in a season was considered world class.
Right, and they changed that.
Messi and Ronaldo made 50 goals the new baseline.
I found it really interesting that in 2023, Ronaldo explicitly stated the rivalry was, quote, gone. Like, they shared the stage and now it's over. But the public narrative around them was always so wildly polarized.
Oh, completely.
Messi was always painted as the shy, divine genius who just rolled out of bed with a ball glued to his foot.
While Ronaldo was cast as the relentless, engineered titan, the self-made machine. And because his drive is so visible, he's often perceived as arrogant. You see him scowling, gesticulating wildly when a teammate misses a pass, demanding absolute perfection. But is that perceived arrogance actually just a survival mechanism? If you think about it, if you're the kid who was scraping by in a cramped room in Madeira and you had to laser focus your way out of poverty, maybe demanding the ball in the 90th minute isn't an ego trip. Maybe it's literally just the only way your brain knows how to survive.
That's a very sharp point, and his managers and teammates have consistently defended him using that exact logic. They argue that what the public views as vanity is actually just a severe refusal to accept mediocrity.
Right.
His ultimate drive has always been to cement his legacy alongside Pelé and Maradona. And the emotional weight of that ambition is most obvious when you look at his roller coaster career with the Portuguese national team.
Oh, the national team journey is the ultimate case study in his resilience. Let's group this by theme. You have the crushing heartbreak, like the literal tears of losing the Euro 2004 final on home soil as a teenager.
Yeah, that was devastating.
Then you contrast that with the triumphs. Finally winning Euro 2016, capturing the Nations League in 2019, and incredibly doing it again in 2025.
And sprinkled within all of that are moments of intense professional humiliation.
Like being benched.
Exactly, being benched during the knockout stages of the 2022 World Cup. For an athlete with his immense pride, that could have been a career-ending mental blow.
But he doesn't break. He bounces back from that benching to score his 900th career goal in late 2024, and he's still starting in the 2026 World Cup qualifiers.
Because of that survival instinct you mentioned. He single-handedly dragged Portugal from being a team that only occasionally qualified for tournaments into a modern, feared, trophy-winning superpower.
And we absolutely have to talk about how he celebrates that dominance, the CU. He jumps, spins in the air, lands in this massive power stance, and screams it. The sources say it literally just means yes, but said with extreme intensity.
Just yes.
Why did a simple shout become arguably the most viral athletic celebration in human history?
Because it's a brilliant piece of psychological branding. It is highly participatory. When he does it, the entire stadium screams it with him.
Oh yeah, you hear 80,000 people shout it at once.
Right. And it's easily replicable by kids on playgrounds everywhere. It entirely transcends language. And that celebration is actually the perfect bridge to understanding the next phase of his life. You cannot separate the players screaming "Su'u" on the pitch from the massive, complex global entity he has become off it.
Right, the CR7 ecosystem. This is where he transitions from a sports star to a geopolitical asset. The scale is almost hard to process. Take the Saudi move in 2023. He signs a contract reportedly worth 200 million euros a year.
A staggering amount of money.
But it wasn't just about the money, was it? He essentially legitimized an entire national sporting project, sparking a massive influx of European stars to the Saudi Pro League.
Yes, and he leverages that influence to build a corporate fortress. Look, his business moves up to 2026. He actually buys a 25% ownership stake in the Spanish club UD Almeria. Plus, he has his own fragrance lines, clothing brands, a chain of hotels.
But wait, why buy a quarter of a Spanish club while you're still playing in the Middle East? What's the strategy there?
His portfolio diversification and vertical integration. He is securing his infrastructure for the decades after he officially retires. By owning a stake in a European club, he maintains a solid foothold in the most lucrative football market in the world.
Ah, so he is transitioning from talent to ownership.
Exactly. And the engine driving all of this commercial power is his unprecedented reach.
1 billion followers across social media platforms, the first person to ever cross the 500 million mark, and then the 1 billion mark. And when he launched his YouTube channel in 2024, it hit 1 million subscribers in 90 minutes.
90 minutes.
He doesn't even need traditional media anymore. He is his own media conglomerate.
He really is. But an ecosystem of that magnitude inherently attracts intense scrutiny. and the sources do outline several significant legal battles.
Right.
In 2018, there was a major tax evasion case in Spain that resulted in a 16.8 million euro fine and a suspended sentence.
And the sources also detail the 2009 Las Vegas rape allegation. How did his legal machinery handle something of that gravity?
Well, that case was entirely dismissed with prejudice by a U.S. federal judge in 2022. The judge's ruling stated that the accuser's lawyer had acted in severe bad faith by repeatedly utilizing leaked attorney-client privileged documents.
I see.
It's a stark example of the immense legal and public relations shield required to navigate controversies when your brand is valued in the billions.
And that shield inevitably bumps up against global politics. Now, before we get into this next part, I want to be incredibly clear with you listening. We are not taking any political sides here.
Absolutely not.
We are strictly laying out the chronological sequence of events exactly as they appear in the reporting.
Understood. So in November 2025, Ronaldo gave an interview where he explicitly stated he liked U.S. President Donald Trump and requested a meeting to discuss world peace.
Okay.
And shortly after that interview, a black-tie dinner took place at the White House.
And the guest list for this dinner is fascinating. It's Ronaldo, President Trump, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and FIFA President Gianni Infantino.
Yes. And according to the timeline and the sources, a week after this high-profile dinner, FIFA issued a reprieve for Ronaldo.
A reprieve for what, exactly?
Well, he had been facing a 3-match ban for elbowing an Irish player during a World Cup qualifier. FIFA eliminated the ban, replacing it with a probationary period.
Which ensured he would be available for Portugal's opening matches in the upcoming World Cup.
Exactly.
Again, just laying out the timeline there. But it raises a massive logistical question for me. How does one human brain process playing a World Cup qualifier, managing a global fashion brand, navigating high-stakes legal battles, and attending dinner with world leaders in the exact same week?
The answer lies in elite compartmentalization. There is the man, Cristiano, and there is the brand, CR7.
Ah, so they are separate entities.
Practically, yes. He has surrounded himself with a highly efficient corporate structure, agents, lawyers, CEOs. They manage the orbit of the billion-dollar brand, which frees up the man himself to step onto the grass, completely block out the noise of a billion followers, and focus entirely on the geometry of the pitch.
It's a staggering journey. We started by looking at a kid from Madeira sharing a cramped bedroom, whose heart was beating dangerously out of rhythm, a kid expelled for losing his temper.
Yeah.
And we've watched him use a relentless drive, a highly calculated physical evolution, and a magnetic personality to engineer himself into the ultimate footballing Terminator.
He took the raw, volatile materials of his childhood deprivation and channeled them into a pursuit of absolute perfection. And in doing so, he fundamentally altered the tactical nature of the sport, rewrote the business of sports marketing, and redefined the absolute limit of an athlete's global influence.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to chew on today. When a single athlete amasses 1 billion followers, when they can command 200 million euros a year, spark international lead migrations, and sit at dinner tables with heads of state, do they still belong to the sport? Or at that point, does the sport actually belong to them? Think about that teenager waking up from laser heart surgery, realizing his irregular heartbeat had finally been made steady. He didn't just step back onto the pitch, he ended up buying the whole stadium.